Dune Part 2 is the hotly anticipated sequel to Dune Part 1. Now, when I watched the first Dune film, I didn't know it was going to be two films. It was not called Dune Part 1. So it was a bit of a rug pull for me, especially because they ended the movie in the middle of like a going sequence after a fight scene. And, you know, I've been kind of I guess, a closet Dune fan. You know, I've watched the Lynch film. I've read two of the first two books. So I was definitely more hyped up and more anticipating this film because it got delayed by 4 months because of the writer's strike. Stupid Warner Brothers wanted to, you know, make 2024 a good box office year, so they shifted the film because Barbie was already a big hit. Anyways, the film is wonderful. Fastest 2.5 hours of my life. This movie delivers in all the great ways. It's massive, it's epic, it's a spectacle, it's a huge film. The scope is just so big. Denis Villeneuve is just firing off on all cylinders with all of his talented people, from his cinematographer to his set design persons, and the actors are giving it their all. A different dynamic this time around because we're basically following Paul and Jessica in the desert, and it's sort of a coming-of-age story as Paul becomes more in tune with the Fremen and their way of life. However, there's a lot more for the characters to do this time around. Shani gets explored more because she's barely in the first movie, but she's basically becomes Paul's mentor and lover. And Lady Jessica becomes something, a religious figure of her own, and she starts calculating behind the curtains, and it's really great stuff from Rebecca Ferguson. And Stilgar, he gets expanded more as a mentor for Paul as well too. Gets some more to do. I noticed that the Harkonnens get a little shafted this time around. I feel Dave Bautista overacts too much. He should have played it more like a bumbling large fool. He kind of screams a lot, and it's kind of like, I mean, that's the way you want to play the character, sure. But I think the scene stealer for the Harkonnens is definitely Austin Butler. He just has this magnetic personality. You know, he just brings that charm. You know, even though he's caked up in like all that gross pale makeup, he still has that studly charm, and you know, that's why they cast him as Elvis. He's great in this movie. He's not a cartoon either. He's like definitely like villainous and weird, and he's like eccentric and psychotic and sociopathic, but you know, he's just a guy, and he's just there, and he wishes to, you know, help his family and everything too. They also get to see a little bit more in terms of world building. We see more worms. We see the Harkonnen planet. The Harkonnen planet. Yeah, we see it's like really gray and gross, and that's cool. And I like that the progression of the escalation. You know, we get to see someone ride a worm, and then we see a bunch of people riding a worm, then we see an exodus on worms, and then we see worms attack. So it sort of builds up to these crescendo of epic proportions. And I guess underutilized Christopher Walken as Shaddam IV. He's definitely underutilized. Not a lot of sequences. Same goes for Florence Pugh. You know, she doesn't get to do much except be the narrator of sorts. The first film had Paul listening to tapes about Arrakis, and she's doing a diary that gives us some exposition, but he doesn't get to do much, to be honest. Underutilized those two actors for sure. However, you know, you get some really great action in the first half. There's like a sequence where some soldiers go up against the Fremen, then we get another Fremen raid and a few more montages. We get a couple cool knife fights too in the middle and at the end. Plenty of action, plenty of great set design. I liked how my heart swelled up during Paul's speech in the big group of leaders in the South. That was such an amazing sequence. It was perfectly filmed and acted. It was just my favorite part of the movie. It was just amazing. It was just so grandiose and emotional, and just really, I really liked the usage of religious fervor. It's definitely pushed forward in this film a lot, and it is in the book. You know, people call it a jihad. You know, Paul getting the armies of the Fremen together and going up to war. And they call it jihad for a reason, because it is a holy war, and it's definitely some rough stuff coming up ahead. But I liked how the fanaticism was definitely shown as a negative thing, as a sort of epidemic that could sweep through the people and give them hope because they've been pushed down for too long. Definitely get this sort of like Middle Eastern kind of flair, not in terms of music or anything, but just the look and the garbs, and definitely borrowing that from real life. So that's pretty cool. Overall, the film is an amazing, epic film. You know, definitely the emotional payoff, kind of like the same way. I recently watched a Korean duology film called Alienoid, and Alienoid Return to the Earth, or Return to the Future, Presence, or Return to the Future. And the first movie has a lot of action but no emotional stakes. The second film has less action but more emotional stakes. This movie has a combination of both. It's really big in spectacle, lots of action, lots of emotions. Some characters are underutilized, but the main core romance of Shani and Paul is definitely the best part. I love the world building. It's definitely, you know, something that really hard to do, to turn an 800-page novel into one movie, so they did 2 movies. You can definitely say they gave this book movie form justice, for sure, right? They definitely did justice to Dune. So I give Dune Part 2 a 7.5 out of 10.